Testing, testing, testing. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to USC Pulse. Please stand with me at this time as we open with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing all of us here to USC Pulse today. I pray that as we discuss the nation's budget, that the panelists will do it to the best of their ability. I pray that as I share a short devotional, the things that will be shared will touch the hearts of the persons here today, and they can apply it to their daily lives. In your name I pray. Amen. Please be seated. All right. Our devotional for today is entitled, Faithful with What We've Been Given. Our scripture is taken from Psalm 24, verse 1. The earth is the Lord's and everything in the world and all who live in it. And Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much is required. Before we think about how resources are managed in any setting, whether in our lives or school or our nation, it's good to begin by remembering one simple truth. Everything belongs to God. The Bible reminds us that the earth and everything in it is His. That means all we have, our time, our energy, our skills, and even our opportunities belong to Him. We are not owners, we are stewards. A steward is someone who has been trusted with something valuable that belongs to someone else. Sometimes we hear that word stewardship, we think it only applies to money, but it is much bigger than that. Stewardship is about how we manage everything God places in our hands, how we treat people, how we use our time, how we care for creation, and how we make choices that reflect His heart. In the parable of the talents found in Matthew 25:14-30, Jesus tells the story of the master who gives his servants different amount of money. When he returns, he asks them what they have done with that money they were given. Two of them used their resources wisely, but one buried his talent out of fear. The point of the story is not how much money they started with. It is that the master expected them to be faithful with what they had. God does not expect everyone to have the same gifts or abilities. What He does ask of us is faithfulness, that we use what we have been given with care, gratitude, and purpose. Faithfulness in small things prepares us to handle greater things later on. So what does that look like for us today? It means managing our time well and not wasting the hours God gives us. It means using our gifts, whether in music, academics, sports, or service, to bless others and not ourselves. It means caring for people, for our school, and for the world around us, as a way of showing God's grace. It also means trusting Him. Sometimes we feel like we do not have enough time, talent, or resources. But stewardship is not about having more. It's about being faithful with what we already have. When we do that, God multiplies it in ways we could never imagine. As you listen later today to the panel discussion, think about the bigger picture of how resources are managed. Remember this: God calls each of us to that same principle, to be stewards of what we have been given. You might not be managing a national budget, but you're managing your life. Your choices, your words, your influence. And that is something sacred. So ask yourself today, am I being faithful with what God has given to me? So that's something for all of us to ponder on as we go throughout the day and the rest of our lives. And we will now receive greetings from our Provost, Dr. Len Archer.
Hello, everybody. I don't see everybody here, but hello to everybody who's here. You're in the right place this afternoon. Today is National Budget Day in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a very important part of the life of Trinidadians and Tobagonians, because let's face it, we live in a country where, whether we're political or not, we depend on the political environment, the leadership of our country. So I think this is something that we should take very, very seriously. And even if you're not a business person, it's something that you should be concerned about. Thanks to Lemario for his presentation. Very, very appropriate for an occasion like this, because budgets are not just for the government, but each of us have our individual budgets that we deal with. I note that this very important program is one that the School of Business and Entrepreneurship has hosted for the last 5 years. This is the 5th annual, isn't that correct? Yes, the 5th annual. And it is one that is designed to sensitize us to this important event. Many of you, as you walked in, you probably heard the budget actually being presented right now in the halls of the House of Representatives. And although we don't know all the details of it, it is important that we try to understand a little bit more about how it works. And I think also try to understand how it will benefit us. And this is what this meeting is all about. As the members of the School of Business, students and the panel here will try to give us some insight. We'll try to give us some insight into how this works and what it means for all of us, and their opinions, really, about how this all falls in business. So thanks for attending. It's good to be here. And I want to invite now the Dean of the School of Business and Entrepreneurship, Ms. Sherilyn Legal, who will give a few remarks before we proceed with the rest of the program. Correction, Ms. Sherilyn Legal Nelson. I keep forgetting that the last part of the appellation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for being here at our USC Pulse session. As we have some industrial, and you notice these really smart young people sitting up here, they have a lot of very interesting things to say. Now, why is the national budget important, and why do we pay attention to it? Well, partly, as Dr. Archer spoke about a while ago, it actually influences our cost of living. Is it getting higher? Is it staying about the same? Is it going down? Like somebody just whispered that they already said in the national budget of Trinidad and Tobago, super gas has just gone down by $1. That's a big deal for those who drive cars. That's a deal. That's a deal. So this is why we pay attention to the national budget presentation every year. Now, the fiscal year for Trinidad and Tobago runs from October 1 to September 30th. So anytime right around September 30th, we expect the national budget presentation to be read. Why is it also important for young adults and young people and all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? Well, it also speaks not only about the cost of living, what we're going to pay in the supermarkets, what we're going to pay for food, if the cost of flour goes up, if doubles is going to go up, and roti is going to go up, and whatever food are we going to pay for is going to go up. That's our cost of living, part of it. If our electricity bill is going to go up, if our internet rates are going to go up, if Flow and Digicel, are they hovering around just waiting to increase rates? These are the things that we are listening for in terms of the trends in which the government is thinking about in terms of their revenue projections and expenditure plans. We are also thinking about job opportunities. What is the outlook for jobs? Just this morning, we were at Arima Central Government School, and we were talking a little bit about the outlook for jobs in the future. When we hear the national budget presentation being read, it gives us a sense of how the government expects future is going to look like for jobs and the outlook for the economy. What do they anticipate is the rate of growth for our economy? We will be listening for things like that. We'll be also listening for things about education funding. Are they going to expand funding? Are they going to reduce funding? Do we expect increase? Well, what about other areas like crime? And what about opportunities for entrepreneurship? Is the government of Trinidad and Tobago, are they prepared to support entrepreneurs in terms of their trust for businesses? And so these are what we are listening for as we listen to the national budget presentation. So today, right now, as we speak, it's going on for Trinidad and Tobago. The Minister of Finance is presenting the national budget right as we have this chapel. So we're listening for economic growth and social initiatives. We're listening for those, and we're listening for things like infrastructure, our highways and our roads, our national security. That's a huge deal for this country, national security. And we are listening to hear what does the government project, and we are listening to hear what are we hearing about health. When we access healthcare, how do we access healthcare? What are we hearing about that? Are we going to hear about property tax? Nobody wants to hear about property tax, except probably the government. But nobody wants to pay extra tax out of the money that they are getting. We already pay taxes. What are we going to hear about wages? Are we going to get anything about the minimum wage changing? What are we going to be hearing? But this afternoon, these young people on stage, they are going to speak to you on specific aspects of the budget. So, first aspect you're going to hear about, well, maybe not in this order, but these are the aspects: crime, education, energy, foreign exchange. I went to the bank today, Dr. Archer, looking for some foreign exchange. I said, oops, sorry, you came too late. Come back tomorrow. Health. And then we'll get a little overview of how Tobago falls within this particular realm as well. So we're excited to hear about these students, and let me introduce you to who they are today. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear them introduced, let's call them one by one. You are going to hear who they are. Please give them a round of applause because they did their research and they have some interesting things to tell you today. So, ladies and gentlemen, on stage this afternoon to bring to you a discussion about aspects of the national budget in no particular order, we are going to have Christian Pascal, a third-year finance major. Where you are, Christian? Wait for everybody to see. Here we go. I won't tell you what they're going to be. All right, thank you. That's because Christian was special. Christian, you get the longest welcome. Nice. All right. Also, we have Shanice, a second-year economics major. Shanice, wait for everybody to see. Yay, there's Shanice sitting right there. Then we have Kadeen. Kadeen is a fourth-year management major. Kadeen is waving for everyone to see. Then we have Nilani. Nilani is a third-year finance major. Wave for us, Nilani. Beautiful. Then we have Jalen. Jalen is a fourth-year finance major. Wave for us, Jalen. And then we have, at the head of the table to this side, we have our very passionate economics adjunct lecturer, Mr. Dwayne Winchester. Wave for us, Mr. Winchester. And this afternoon, they are going to be hosted by Dr. Oda Javil, chairperson of the Accounting, Finance, and Economics Department in the School of Business and Entrepreneurship. And then next to him, we have Alicia Lewis. Alicia in the house this evening. Alicia, thank you for agreeing as well. Our own School of Business. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn you over to them now as they aid you into the discussion about aspects of the national budget.
Testing. All right, good. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 5th annual discussion on the national budget, hosted by the Department of Accounting, Finance, and Economics here at the School of Business and Entrepreneurship, USC. It is interesting that the national budget occurs today, the same time we are doing this presentation. You know, these dates don't come easy. We have to book chapel in months in advance. And you know, we chose this date hoping that, well, we expected that the budget would have taken place already and not on the same date, right? And unfortunately, next week, Monday is a holiday. The next Monday after that is week of prayer. The next Monday after that is honors convocation. So unfortunately, we couldn't get another time to do it, right? So bear with us as we do it, coinciding with the national budget. Mr. Winchester, I'll open with going to a question to you as we begin. The budget has just begun. Share with us why the national budget is so important and what key highlights would have already been mentioned as the budget is currently ongoing.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so the budget is basically the government's outline of the expenditures for the upcoming fiscal year, which is October to September, and it basically outlines how the government plans to raise revenue for the next fiscal year. It's important because the government accounts for about a third of total spending in the economy. This is an economy that's driven by the energy sector, and through the energy sector, the government is able to stimulate the entire economy. It's not a private sector-driven economy like the United States. It's not a export-driven economy like Germany, export of from private firms. This is mainly a government-driven economy. The government is the largest single employer, and the government provides generous and extensive amount of subsidies to make necessities affordable for large amount of the population. So given its importance, the budget will then be very important because the government has a significant role in this economy.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Winchester, for starting us off on a strong note. Now, I just want us to shift to my fellow students here. Now, every year, the budget is anticipated, right? And there are certain areas in the budget that persons are eager to hear about, right? For example, Ms. Ligo would have mentioned, is the minimum wage increasing? Do I have to pay more or less taxes? So, I want you guys to share what, in your view, is important for the government to address in this budget. So we could start from Nilani, and we'll make our way down.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. One thing I would say is important for the government to address is exports, and the government should provide more support to exports when it comes to manufacturing specifically, because in the first quarter of this year, manufacturing expanded 10%, and it provides a good opportunity for us to increase our forex income.
Good afternoon, all. In my opinion, the energy sector is the backbone of our economy. So I would like to see the budget showcase how we will be navigating that sector and how we will be dealing with the geopolitical issues currently that we are facing with Venezuela and United States to move forward and possibly put in place new projects to increase our revenue in that sector.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to just thank the panelists for that question, as I believe it leads us properly into this discussion. I think one of the most important areas for this budget to focus on will be the healthcare sector, where we have an estimated of $7.571 billion estimated into this year. And I believe that with that money, we need to tackle the crisis of NCDs, non-communicable diseases, the shortage of nurses, and just overall our infrastructure when it comes to the healthcare system of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. In my opinion, education is a very important part of the budget this year because, as the Honorable Prime Minister said, education is the only passport out of poverty. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. One thing I would like to see implemented into this year's budget would be some investment into the Crime Investigation Department of the Police Service.
And we're back. I believe we were just with Shanice at the moment, at the time. All right, let's go, Shanice. Sorry.
Anyways, starting over, one thing I would like to see implemented into this year's budget would be some investment into the Crime Investigation Department of the Police Service. With, in fact, only 12% of our crimes on average are solved yearly, and I believe with investing into technical advancements in forensics, DNA testing, and fingerprinting, we can increase that number significantly and in turn deter criminal activity. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So our economy has contracted 23% in per capita terms since 2015. We are getting poorer, basically, and the government has to borrow huge sums of money to maintain its expenditures. As a result of the contraction in the economy, we have a shortage of foreign exchange. It's very difficult to get foreign exchange. And for the economy to continue, we need, ample supplies of foreign exchange. So I would like to see the government generate economic growth, begin to address the foreign exchange shortage, as well as how do you improve the standard of living of people. Many of them haven't had a salary increase since 2014. Well, a major salary increase or noticeable salary increase since 2014. So I'd like to see how the government addresses those things.
Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to continue with Nalini. Over the last few years, we have heard a lot on foreign exchange, right? So coming just off of what Mr. Winchester was saying there, over the last few years, we heard a lot on it. We have a new government in place who has vowed to fix the foreign exchange crisis that we are currently experiencing. Firstly, start by telling us why the country needs an adequate supply of foreign exchange. Why is that important to the economy, to businesses, to others?
So Trinidad and Tobago is very consumeristic. We consume a lot, and the majority of our consumption is funded by foreign exchange because we have a lot of foreign goods that always comes in. Our clothes, our food, some of our appliances, our cars, all funded by foreign exchange. So for that alone, we would need an ample supply to continue consuming normally. And right now, our import cover is projected at about 5.4 months worth, compared to 7.8 in August of last year, 2024. So at a 30% reduction, we need to look at ways that we could improve our import cover, because eventually we're going to be at zero. I mean, hopefully not, but at the end of the day, we have to improve the import cover to continue consuming like we normally do. And our biggest import is fuel, because we closed down the refinery, and because of that, we have to import fuel. We can't make our own. So that is our biggest expenditure when it comes to foreign exchange. And my final point is the fact that our reserves are funded by official loans. It's funded by national debt, like bond issuances. That's where the central bank gets the foreign exchange from. And it's also funded by the oil and gas industry. So at the end of the day, we're spending more than we're earning. And with that, we need to look at ways to improve our import cover and earn more, basically, so we could continue consuming.
All right, good. What measures do you foresee the government implementing that could help improve the foreign exchange crisis that we currently experience?
Well, currently, the conversation is whether to devalue or to dollarize. And when you're talking about devaluation, currently our exchange rate is about 6.7, 6.8. And people who are for devaluation argue that we should really be at 10 TT dollars for every US. And that would, benefit of that, they say, is to make imports more expensive, so we don't import as much, and we could kind of save on the forex, and it will also help to kind of bring down the demand for forex. So the other side of that is dollarization, which is the adoption of the USD as our money, basically, a form of our Trinidad and Tobago's legal tender. But the issue with that is they'll have to take all the TT dollars in current circulation and replace it with USD, and that would be expensive. It would take time. You have to change all your bank balances to USD from TT, and that would put pressure on the central bank, rather than devaluation that puts pressure on us consumers, importers, business owners. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Nalani. Now, I have another question for you. You would have mentioned that, as consumers, we would feel the pressure of this crisis, right? Now, from your perspective, do you think that we'll realistically see an ease up in the crisis anytime soon, to the point where people like you and I can easily access foreign exchange?
Unless we can find a solution to this forex issue, like dollarization or devaluation, I don't see things getting better. Our import cover is on a downward trend, and that would make access to forex much harder for consumers.
Your first point that you said is that we no longer have the refinery up and running, right? Which means that we have to be importing gas back into the country for us to use,
Yes.
right? Which is, besides us being able to export from the refinery, which would have given us US dollars, we're now losing more US dollars bringing in fuel. A report recently from the minister within the Ministry of Energy, he received a report and he said that based upon the committee that evaluated the refinery and wrote up the report, it says that the refinery is ready to open. How could that affect the foreign exchange crisis that we are currently experiencing?
So the refinery opening would, number one, we would be able to save some of the forex that we're spending on fuel, because we will be making our own fuel. And number two, we would be able to actually become an exporter. So it would be a win-win on both sides for us. And with the Dragon Gas deal and the ExxonMobil deal on the horizon, it's looking pretty probable and a good solution for us. And it would actually improve our import cover as well, allowing us to continue consuming as normal.
All right.
Thing.
If you allow me to inject as well, I also do believe that the reopening of the refinery, better known as Petrotrin, would have a great impact on our foreign exchange reserves in a positive way. With the reopening of the refinery, we will be able to reduce our import bills so that we import less crude oils like gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and we export more so that we could utilize for our own and we could save that foreign exchange as opposed to importing it and spending. It will also open up new jobs for contractors and laborers across the board as well. But to approach that situation, we have to watch it in a technical and financial aspect as well, because it's not like just flipping a switch and the refinery is back open and we are back refining oil. It has been closed since 2018, which we were at a $2 billion loss. Maintenance has to now be undergone. A lot of testing has to be done on the oil itself. So it is a financial investment that we need to be strategic about before we impact or we go towards that as a project.
All right, good. Thank you.
All right, so Jalen, in your view, how is the energy sector connected to foreign exchange?
Okay, that's a good question. So currently, to break it down into figures, currently 80% of our foreign exchange in US dollars comes from the energy sector. So our exports of LNG, our exports in petrochemicals such as ammonia and methanol, does bring in 80% of the US dollars into the country and allows us to increase our foreign exchange reserves. What I know a lot of us may have seen the impacts of the lower gas productions and oil productions in our day-to-day spending and accessing as well US dollars. As Dean would have rightfully said, she tried to get US dollars and she was turned away. So in our last budget, we estimated that oil prices would have been $80 per barrel, approximately. And in actuality, it was $60 per barrel, which is a big hit, a big differentiation. And this caused the banks to refrain on the providing the US dollars, and which caused credit limits to be cut drastically, etc.
All right, thank you.
I would just like to add that according to the International Energy Agency, they expect oil prices to be low next year because of the glut of oil in the world markets. United States is one of the biggest producers of oil, and they project that their oil production is going to rise. World demand for oil is low, so they're expecting low oil prices. So the government is going to have the country is going to have a challenge with foreign exchange even next year. And what long term we have to do is begin developing new exports, right, outside of the energy sector. Right now we're desperate for gas. We need the OFAC license. We want to get gas from Guyana, Suriname, Grenada, everywhere, right? But long term, we have to come up with new exports to earn foreign exchange. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. This crisis began when gas production started going down in 2012 and when gas prices tanked in 2014. And that was the genesis of this crisis we are in right now.
Okay, so we would have discussed the linkage between the energy sector and foreign exchange. And I want to throw this question to Kadeen. Now, it's not usual to see a linkage between the healthcare and foreign exchange crisis, but a recent publication by the Exim Bank of their foreign exchange users showed that pharmaceutical company leading in the use of foreign exchange. Now, what does this suggest?
Well, thank you for that question, and I believe that it is a very important observation, and it really shows us how closely related and linked the healthcare sector is in comparison with the economy. The Exim Bank list really does show that one of the top foreign exchange users is actually pharmaceuticals. And this just simply goes to show us, and it highlights our heavy resilience reliance on the pharmaceuticals, imported pharmaceuticals. In 2024, Trinidad and Tobago imported, estimated, USC $198 million worth of pharmaceuticals, with the government spending about TTD $1 billion annually on drugs and medical supplies through programs like CDAP. In addition, with CDAP, they have filled more than $2.4 million worth of prescriptions. Each year, when foreign exchange is limited, the cost of these imports rise, directly affecting patient care and hospital operations. This suggests that we must diversify, perhaps by promoting local pharmaceutical production and regional supply partnerships to stabilize costs while conserving our foreign exchange reserves. Thank you.
All right, so that was a very insightful response. Thank you for that, Kadeen. Now, I just want to go back to Jalen. Now, the government has moved from power generating companies from under the Ministry of Energy to being under the Ministry of Public Utilities. What impact do you think this could have on the country and our public utility needs?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I think it would have a positive impact on our country and the citizens. To break it down in terms that you can understand as well, the utility sector, water, TNTech, electricity, is broken down into two parts, distribution and generation. So originally, the generation side was under the Ministry of Energy, which was companies like PowerGen and Trinity. So they would deal with the generation of the electricity through creation with natural gases. And the distribution, as you all know, TNTech, would supply the electricity to the grid. So now that these two entities are now merged, it could cause for better communications. So different deals could go through more smoothly. And so instead of having to think of an idea, then go to another party and get it approved, and then it could be more coincide, and things could happen quicker and more effectively opposed to how it was before.
All right, and with that, Jalen, Trinidad and Tobago is known as an oil and gas producing nation, right? How important is that Dragon gas deal to our economy? As well as, how do you think possible geopolitics tensions may affect this arrangement?
So the Dragon gas deal is a very important project that the country or the government is trying to approve. There is a lot of different factors for this Dragon gas deal. One of the most recent factors that we would have been able to confront and successfully attain was the OFAC license, which we got for a 6-month period. But a lot of individuals are thinking, okay, cool, if we get this Dragon gas deal, then all of our problems are solved, which is not the case. For the past few years, our gas reserves have been at a steady decline. So while the Dragon gas deal is very important, and securing that deal would be very important for the country, we could look at it as our Dragon gas reserves is a barrel, and there's a leak at the bottom of the barrel. So it's constantly going out, and that Dragon gas deal will prompt us up to a position where we was previously. So we'll be at a steady and a more secure position. But in order for our economy and our country to evolve, we need more deals. Some of these deals, like the Lauren Manatee deal, which is also on the border of Venezuela. We have the Calypso deal, which is in Tobago. So maximizing all these different projects will be very effective and will help promote our economy and boost us up into a very advantageous position.
But what about the geopolitics at
Well,
play?
that in of itself is a very tricky situation. As I mentioned before, we do have the OFAC license from the United States. But while we do have that license, we now have to go back to Venezuela with this license and see if they do approve the conditions of the license. It is not public knowledge what exactly the agreement of the license was. So we are waiting to see if after we approach Venezuela, if they will agree to allow us to extract that gas, because it is a substantial amount of gas that we will be able to have access to. It's 3.4 trillion cubic feet, and we already have the utilities in place with the hibiscus plant right next door. It's very easy for us to start extracting that gas. That's why it's one of the most important. Whereas with the Calypso gas, it's a bit deeper, so it will cost more for us to be able to access that Calypso gas.
All right. Well, when I say the geopolitics, what I really want to zero in on is that, we saw some talks being thrown from government to government. One person, one minister threw a talk, the vice president also of Venezuela threw back some talk. People who talk about nuking, who talk about the deal was dead. Things seemed a bit rough before we heard that this OFAC license came back. Realistically speaking, it's like a, well, let me not say that, but how realistically speaking, how do you see or what do you foresee happening?
It definitely is a tricky situation because, as we might rightfully know, the U.S. has sanctions on Venezuela. So we are in an odd spot whereby we need the U.S. because the U.S. is one of our allies, but on the other side, Venezuela has a resource that we want to tap into. On the side of Venezuela, although there were words that were passed and a lot of conflict had arisen for a period of time, Venezuela doesn't have the facilities to properly extract that gas. So they want money as well. They need that money as well. So I believe that they would look aside from the little conflicts to make that money to allow their economy as well to improve.
All right. Good, we take that.
What drives our economy is natural gas and petrochemicals. Petrochemicals deals with liquefied natural gas. We was one of the first countries in the world to get into the liquefied natural gas business, and at one point supplied the United States with 70% of its liquefied natural gas. However, we use natural gas for ammonia, methanol, urea, melamine. That's petrochemicals. That's the Point Lisa's industrial estate. But they could use about 4.4 billion standard cubic feet of gas every day. But natural gas production has fallen from about 4.1 in about 2012 to 2.5 now. So the petrochemical plants are severely underutilized by as much as 30%, which has an impact on economic growth, which has an impact on foreign exchange, which has an impact on revenue. So since we starved of natural gas, we have to find natural gas. And Venezuela has the 4th largest reserves of natural gas in the world. And there's a field that's very close by to us that has enough natural gas to supply us with natural gas for 30 years. Right? So that's where we're trying to get. However, it's in Venezuelan waters, and the United States put sanctions on Venezuela. So we need an OFAC license to get permission to get access to natural gas. If we do it without, we might get sanctions ourselves, and we don't want that. Right? So that's the scenario we're in. It's a natural gas economy, and we're running out of natural gas, and we have to try to source it from Venezuela, and that would be a big prop-up to the economy. It's actually that, as long as the Lauren Manatee, the Calypso field in Tobago, the other one, I can't pronounce it, Mannequin, right? We need access to a lot of gas to keep the economy going.
All right, so before we move on from this section, Jalen, finally for you, I want to ask, what else energy-wise do you believe the budget should highlight?
I believe that we could also highlight secondary sources of energy, such as green energy, solar power, energy, electric, while our main core, as Mr. Winchester would have mentioned, our main revenue comes from the oil and gas industry. So not necessarily promoting it outside of our country because we still need to export. We could utilize it inside our own country so that we utilize less oil and gas, and that oil and gas that we are able to save by utilizing solar energy and electric and hybrid, we can now export those gas and oils that we would have, kept from utilizing. so that we maximize revenue and we could prop up the economy even more.
All right, thank you. So let's move on to Christian. All right, now we are in an educational institution here. So this is a section of the budget that relates to us as students, right? What plans do you believe should be implemented under the Ministry of Education?
Well, I think that the government should put systems in place for students that don't learn as fast or the same way as other students, because the system we have in place right now is everybody learn one way across the board, but not all students learn the same. So systems should be put in place for children that learn at a slower pace. And for instance, this last year and this year in the CSEC exam, in mathematics, for example, students came in with less than 50% overall in the entire country. So I think systems should be put in place for the students that can't keep up, so they wouldn't be left behind.
All right, great response. And what about GATE? Do you foresee any current changes?
Well, this is a very good question. It is difficult to predict because I don't see any drastic change in the in GATE unless it is to expand the program in a bigger and better way. Because while this is a new government, I think the government will still be interested in building human capital that would expand and that will assist in building the economy. So I can't imagine that they will do any drastic changes to GATE, because if they do, like cut the funding to GATE, it will increase the dropout rate of the tertiary level education students.
All right. And now, Christian, what are your thoughts about police officers being assigned to schools?
Well, the fact that it has come to this stage, that means the country, the society has come into a decay. And it equally starts from home because parents are the first teachers, and they are the first teachers of the moral upbringing. And if they don't have good moral upbringing, or probably they are being abused at home, they will then project those behaviors into the school system, and then the teachers can't control them. They will have to bring in police officers to deal with it. Now, while we mightn't look at it in the bigger picture, taking police officers to come to deal with these issues, that means taking police officers off of their normal duties to attend to these situations and violence in schools. Now, the government has placed police officers in schools. They had to recruit extra officers to put in schools, and now that's going to send up the expenditure because they have to allocate money to pay these new officers that they have placed in schools.
Thank you. Shanice, I want to hear from you the same question. That question being, what do you think of police officers being placed in schools?
What I think is necessary to observe about police officers being placed in schools is the significance of why we need police officers in school in the first place. I think it says something about the criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago so much so that it is having effects on our youth, which is the new economy for the years to come. If we are raising criminals in the country and they are showing it from the early ages and the early signs of so much so that we need law enforcement to be implemented within the school system, it says that we are building an unstable society and we are encouraging criminal activity. Now, what we need to do, other than the economic effects that my co-host here, that my chairperson, she also said, other than the economic effects that it will have, we also need to look at what is the cause of our youths to have these behaviors. It is the influences and the criminal activity and the environment that they are seeing on the outside. To negate this problem, we need to attack criminal activity outside of the school and the parents and the influences that are having these negative effects on our youth. Because the youth are our future. And if we grow criminals, we will be a criminal country. And in turn, the economic effects of that. We cannot hire criminals to work high-paying jobs. And other than that as well, as my chairperson has said, it is costing our country, even in the present moment, economic strain to hire additional workers that the police officers who are necessary in schools now would have otherwise taken up the mantle on the outside of the schools.
Right. Now, I've had similar thoughts, right? But continuing, even as we get in time memo, crime has been plaguing this country. However, with the state of emergency that currently exists and has existed for most of the year, because you would realize that towards the end of 2024, a state of emergency was called by the last government, which went into 2025, and then post this government coming into effect, they also call a state of emergency. So with state of emergency being in effect for most of the year, the murder toll has been down. The last week, we have seen it coming up, right? It was regarded as probably the bloodiest year for the year.
It was 12 murders from the 12th to the 16th of last week.
Right. So it was a terrible week. But how does the government put things in place to sustain that low murder rate post the state of emergency?
Well, one thing I would like to say in regards to the SOE before I address that question is that I think the SOE is just a bandage that we are putting on a bigger wound. The SOE is not a long-term solution to our crime problem that has been plaguing the country for a number of years. I think I have a similar view to the police officers in schools. This is just a temporary fix to our long-term problem. And as we can observe, even in the 2011 SOE, where they had a low crime rate during the state of emergency, as soon as the state of emergency ended, we saw a spike in criminal activity after the fact. Now, why can't we expect a similar situation to take place now?
Not that we want a similar situation to take place, right?
No, of course
because
not.
Of course, one life saved is one life good, right? Or one life lost is one life too much loss, right? And so, while we would probably think that, yes, it would go back up after the state of emergency, we're still kind of grateful that, lives have been saved. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can understand your reasoning as well, but the way I look at it more in a realistic, practical view, not to say that your view is unrealistic, but what I'm saying is that the government needs to take more proactive approach into the limitation of criminal behavior. Now, we have some policies and legislations that are being put into place. For example, the gun laws that are trying to be implemented. But what I really would like to see in regards to the prevention of crime would be stricter law enforcement, just in the Now, as I said previously at the beginning of the discussion, only 12% of crimes are solved in Trinidad and Tobago on average yearly, and that is the yearly average for the past 5 years. So this gives criminals the impression that they can just do whatever they want and there's no consequences for their actions. Now, if we see stricter police services and stricter enforcement of the law, then it deters criminal behavior and activity, and we'll see this in the long run, not just in the short one, where we could observe that in the SOE only.
All right, so now what about guns and firearms? What are your thoughts on changes in legislations that allow greater gun ownership and the right to use firearms more freely if an intruder is in your home?
Now, this is a really interesting question to me because I have a lot to say. 80% of crimes committed in Trinidad and Tobago are committed with a gun. Now, if we are making guns, and that is just illegal firearms, right? If we are making guns legal now, who is to say that these firearms are not going to get into the hands of the wrong person? Now, I could understand that a person who is a business owner might feel, or just a person with a regular family might feel the need to have a firearm, seeing as the country is in such a dire state in regards to crime. But we do not know. Not everyone is going to have a good intention. Everyone wants to protect their family. We don't know where guns are going to end up when we put them out onto the street. Now, just in my opinion, I think no guns is the best thing for the country at the moment. If 80% of the of our crime are committed with guns, if we get rid of all the guns, right, they're just going to pick up a knife, but it's better than nothing. You understand what I mean? I just think that the gun law, which they are trying to implement, it could have either a positive response or a negative response, but I'm more seeing the negative side of it, so I think better to be safe than sorry and not to implement it at all.
All right, Mr. Winchester, I'm seeing you're very eager to come in here.
This crime problem plaguing the country since 2002, and it seems that this government is just tired of crime and fed up of crime. This playing nice and you're under arrest and take it to the court, this government doesn't have any time for that. Send police in school, blow up the ships that traffic in drugs, give everybody firearms, shoot the intruders in your house, empty the clip. That's this government approach. And this government don't have time for you're under arrest and blaming the parents. Send police, state of emergency. That's their approach. Right? And to be honest, we tired of crime as well. We tired of crime as well. So I don't mind being a little bit rough with the criminals, right? But is it a long-term strategy? We have problems with the courts, we have problems with open borders, we have problems with forensics, we have a dropout rate, big gap between CSEC and primary school, the labor force is 60% uneducated, and about 55% of people who do CSEC don't get a full certificate. So there's a lot of fundamental problems, but at least in the short run, they're rough and tough, and we go take that for a while, and just hope other things, prison reform as well, other things they could implement as well.
I wanted to hit you back a question, but I would leave it alone in the interest of that we have 5 minutes to wrap up this segment before we take questions from the audience. I would leave it alone. Right. Just to add, thanks to Afia and others who are sending in the snippets of the live budget. I know Mr. Winchester was sharing earlier that the International Economic Body, you call a fancy name there, was saying that they're projecting...
Energy Agency.
Go ahead, one more time.
IEA, International Energy Agency.
Right, yeah. It's projecting oil price to be $50 a barrel next year. So the government has pegged their budget at $73.25 US per barrel. All right? That's just for providing for updated information as we go along. Kadeen, what are your thoughts on how money should be allocated to the health sector? And what are your thoughts on medical tourism?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's a great question. I believe the allocation of funds determines the quality and the accessibility of healthcare in our nation. With $7.571 billion designated to 2025, we need to ensure that spending targets the most pressing needs. This includes tackling the shortage of over 3,000 nurses across the regional health authority and addressing the 50% failure rate among nursing students taking the regional exams. Funding must also support critical infrastructure projects like the construction of the Port of Spain General Hospital Central Block, which UDCOT initially estimated to be completed by July 2025, though the current Minister of Works has since clarified this timeline given to the PNM administration on March 12, 2025 is incorrect. However, the current government is working tirelessly to complete it. In addition to this initiative, there are other initiatives that are taking place, such as the Artificial Limb Center. This is in collaboration with the Government of India, and this simply represents meaningful progress in inclusive healthcare. Every dollar should go forward to improving both capacity and efficiency across this sector.
All right. Now, the UA would have proposed the use of their South campus to have foreign students pay to study medicine and to use this as an additional source of income. So, Calistian, what are your thoughts on medical and educational tourism?
My thoughts on medical and educational tourism is, well, the healthcare system, as it is in the country right now, isn't all that good, isn't at its best, right? And if we want to attract medical tourism, we have to put systems in place because as little as nurses, the government wants to send out of the country to recruit nurses from other countries to come to this country to work. And if we want to attract medical tourism, we have to take countries for, like India, for example, where they have best equipment, top-notch doctors, best nurses, and all of that in order to attract medical tourism. As for the educational tourism part, if we have these systems in place, we could attract educational tourism. We just have to market properly. We have to do a lot of marketing when it comes to that. We have to put the prices cheaper from other countries, like the US and the UK, because people might choose those countries as first preference. But if our prices are less, we could attract them and bring in income for our country through that.
All right. Kadeen, you want to add?
Yes, I would just like to add on to what my colleague spoke about when she spoke about medical tourism. I believe that medical tourism holds very strong potential for Trinidad and Tobago, particularly as we continue to develop our health infrastructure. The Honorable Dr. Lakram Bude recently described the Cuba General Hospital as in a state of tragedy in its current state and should be prioritized for improvement quickly. I believe that once this is fully operational, we can use this hospital as a cornerstone to create a regional medical tourism center, especially with supports from private sectors and partnerships, as my colleague spoke about India's Apollo Hospital, which has been suggested as a potential collaborator. Coupled with the upcoming Artificial Limb Center, this initiative could help Trinidad and Tobago attract patients from the wider Caribbean, generating foreign exchange and jobs. However, we must strike a balance between this, that while we expand our health tourism, our local population continues to have the same access to affordable and high-quality healthcare. Thank you.
All right, so as we move quickly along, Nilani, I just want to throw the same question that I would have asked Calistian. What are your views on medical and educational tourism? But I want you to specifically focus on foreign exchange.
So, what comes to mind when you think of medical tourism in the Caribbean? You think about Cuba, and you could also say the same thing internationally for India. So, Trinidad and Tobago should be capitalizing on this as another source of foreign exchange income. And we can also facilitate this through our medical school. We already have a UE medical school. Recently, there was some discourse about the use of the UE South Campus as an international medical school versus being just a normal extension of the St. Augustine campus. But Trinidad and Tobago has the resources to be a hub for medical tourism. And in terms of education, Tobago is more tourist-friendly than Trinidad, I would say. And because of that, excuse me, and because of that, I would say that it can rival somewhere like St. George's University, which is a huge medical school in the Caribbean. I would say that Tobago could be a huge rival in terms of medical education. And I think it's a good idea that we need to capitalize on, moving away from the energy sector a little bit.
All right, good. Thank you for sharing. And so just for those who are looking on, when you speak of medical tourism or education tourism, talking about the fact that as an educational institution, you could be bringing students in from overseas, attract them and bring them to do your program here, which will also be internationally recognized and usually at a cheaper cost. Right, so the final two questions will go to Mr. Winchester as you wrap up this segment and take two questions from the audience. I just saw a snippet that Tobago has received, I just had it here, $2.96 billion from the budget, which represents 5%. Within the last fiscal year, Tobago received 2.6 billion, right? So they received just about 0.3. If the maths, I mean, we're up here. I didn't work with a calculator. I'm sorry. But so it works out like about a 0.3 difference between what they got last and what they got this for this upcoming year. What are your thoughts on it? What do you see with regards to money being spent on in Tobago? What would you like to see money spent on in Tobago using that money?
Well, Tobago, that represents an increase. Tobago traditionally gets about 2.3 billion, and in 2015 it had either 3.9 or 3.7. But it's 2015 when the recession began, so I'm not surprised that it dropped to 2.3. This government boosted up to 2.9.
2.96. Last year was 2.6.
Yeah.
And this is 2.96 billion.
Right, so they got a little boost. Tobago, according to legislation passed in 2000, is supposed to receive between 4.03 and 6% of the national budget. Right, that's law. And Tobago accounts for about 4% of the general population. Little fact, Tobago's economy is the exact state of where Trinidad economy was in 1962, right? Tobago is highly underdeveloped. It's 70% of the population works for the THA. There's no indigenous industry, right? They're basically living off a check from Trinidad, right? Most of that money is going to be recurrent expenditures, employing people who work in the THA. Government spending accounts for 40% of total spending. So what Tobago needs is a proper developmental budget to diversify the economy. The problem is Tobago cannot make decisions independent of Trinidad or independent of Parliament. So they could have all the grand ideas they want if whoever is the incumbent don't really like Tobago or not getting along with the Chief Secretary, but Tobago's not going to get anything. Right? So Tobago's problem is they're not independent enough. And another problem, what they call chain of money, is that every time they try to engage in a project, there's too much regulations that stymie the advancement of the project. Now, what Tobago has to do is medical tourism, what Kadim and Kulisi was talking about. And the economists who do the research, what they argue is that what we need to get into is medical tourism and educational tourism, right? And move away from this sun-sea tourism, sandals and that sort of stuff, and have a more focus on medical tourism and educational tourism.
Yes, I know I'm cutting you because we need to get to that last question. We really would like to take something from the audience still, and we're watching the time. So last question coming from us. The Minister of Finance on Saturday asked the Trinidad and Tobago, asked the Trinidad and Tobago citizens who are overseas to come home. Question, do you believe that the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago is an encouragement for nationals of Trinidad and Tobago who are overseas to come home?
No, right? Because it's easier to do business away than here. Even if we lower it, it will still be, I'm sure, easier over there. What we need to do is we need to have an industrialized economy, meaning that there's jobs and opportunities for people that pay good real wages. We have to bring down crime, and we have to invest in health. Nobody wants to live somewhere where the public health sector is sketchy. As you get older, you have high productivity, more experience. You want to live somewhere, proper healthcare system. So my opinion, based on these conversations in the past, you need proper jobs, right, outside the government, lower crime, and proper healthcare system. That would make people return here, not just ease of business.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winchester. And so now we'd like to open the floor for one or two quick questions someone who might be out there, who might be looking on, who may have a question that they'd like to ask to the panel. So you're trusting everything was good and clear? Well, I will ask a question. I will ask one more question, because I told Jalen I had to throw a question in at him, but we didn't get I know time was running low, and so, I didn't want to add in extra questions. But since nobody wants to ask, the last question will go to Jalen. We just heard, time gone, or? All right, let's go. You got saved, Jalen.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, you all were talking about like alternatives to the natural gas, right? Which is a huge resource in Trinidad, right? But what about like hydroelectricity, like looking in, because I've noticed that Trinidad has a lot of rivers and so forth, why not like look into that like creating an industry, powering, the systems, within Trinidad using the water?
Yes, so that is a good question, but with all new projects and implementations, there is the factor of financing. So going towards a new source of energy, while it may be a good approach that we can take, or it could be something that we can try and navigate towards, is not something that we can just jump right into. Because as I mentioned before, 80% of our foreign exchange is from the oil and gas industry. So to just try and divert from that industry holistically won't be our most viable approach. But it is something that we can look into implementing. We would not see the benefits very quickly. It will be a very long-term project and something that we'll have to look towards in the future.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you for your question. As Ms. Dusing comes to give us our vote of thanks, and Dr. Eaton is following right behind her for the prayer. Also say, we have we have a major solar park that is also being developed. It started under the last government. But one of a key thing that was mentioned sometime before as well is that Trinidad and Tobago, because we are oil producing country, it is cheaper for us to use oil for electricity. Well, it may not be the best, but it's cheaper for us to use oil for electricity than sometimes to develop these solar parks and otherwise. Now, for other Caribbean countries or other places, it may be cheaper for them to go solar. But remember, because we are producing the oil here already, the whole overall look of it works out cheaper for us actually for the gas, which will kind of not so much push persons into the solar direction, but they have been developing a major solar park as well for renewable energy. Ms. Diosing, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. So firstly, thank God for His grace. I would like to say thank you, Dr. Archer, our provost, for bringing greetings, and also to our dean for her welcoming remarks, Mrs. Sherry Legal Nelson. I would like to thank our chair of the Accounting, Finance, and Econ Department, Dr. Jarville, his host and his co-host, Miss USC, Alicia. I would like to thank members of the Accounting, Finance, Econ Department, Dr. Eaton, and Mr. Wayne Winchester. Thank you, Dwayne Winchester. Thank you so much. Our panelists, each student, thank you so much. You took time, you prepared. It's a midterm assessment, but you did an awesome job. It was very insightful. I would like to say thank you to the Spiritual Life Department for allowing School of Business to take this session, to present the budget, and thank you so much, audience.
Please, let's rise for a word of prayer. Thank you, Jehovah, our Lord and our God, for your infinite love, mercy, and blessings towards us. Thank you for this day which you have made. For it is by your appointment that we've met this way, this day. Today is a very monumental day. So many things have happened by your appointment. It's a day of peace, a day of love. And today the budget is being read. And our students have presented their take on the budget. Father, the world has been in turmoil, but even in the Middle East, there's peace on the way. In our country, there's a lot of crime. We pray for your peace. We pray for your guidance and leadership. I ask, Father, that your presence abide with the administration of this university, and that your presence abide with every student. Thank you for guiding the students through this presentation. As we depart, Father, may your presence go with us. Thank you for all that you've given us and all that you have for us in future. May your name be praised. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
I was time to let them know that they will put the budget up on the screen if anybody wants to remain now. Okay. Yes, sir. Hi. If anyone would like to remain to see the budget continue live, the budget is still going on live. It is going to be placed on the screen here now. Right? Thanks again for supporting. Thanks for coming.